thank you for the opportunity for me to spend time with you. I don't do this often, you know. I never come down to see you guys. Okay, so the plan for today is I'm going to try and hopefully my goal is that you'll come out with at least one or two nuggets of things that you didn't know could be done or can be done. Questions are certainly welcome, and I don't know that I'll have all the answers. You know, give it a shot. The other caveat is I am a super user inside of Great Plains, so if there is something I show you that I think you have access to, and you go back and you go, I can't find it, let me know, and I'll make sure that I can turn that on for you. So when I did all my testing and my getting ready, I was doing it as me. So, and that being the same thing in Image Now. You know, I have permissions that are the super user permissions. So if I miss something, let me know. So what I hope to go through today is to talk about specifically this area called shortcuts, and there's another section up here called toolbars. Also a little bit about this big white space in the middle, your home page, that anybody may or may not use. I'm going to talk about a thing called lists, which I will show you where they're hiding. I will also be talking about smart lists, which probably I've not really used much of, so I sort of learned a lot about it myself over the past few days. But you may find uses for it. And then we're going to jump into Image Now. And in Image Now, I'm going to hopefully show you something you didn't know you could do, which is allow Image Now to, based on what the screen you have open in Great Plains, or one of the inquiries we've written, how you can automatically have it bring up the invoice in Image Now without having to retype the invoice number in. So we're going to go through that and spend some time talking about some cues you may not use that often, and then also searching. And I'm going to cap off the day giving you some news about some other products that are coming. So that's the plan, that's the agenda, so let's get started. Okay, this section on the left hand side, many of you have used it, some of you haven't, is the ability for you to do shortcuts. So this is where if you're sitting in Great Plains and this is where you do a lot of your work, and rather than go to other places, you'd like to be able to have shortcuts and go right from here to certain screens, so then this is how you can accomplish it. So if you'll bring your mouse over, if I can find the mouse, there you go, to the left hand side, if you right click in an open area, you get an add button. Now if you're not sure, if you already have shortcuts and you want to look at what they are, you can always right click and do shortcut properties, which will give you information about it. So let's start with, let's assume you wanted to add in a shortcut to a Great Plains window. So what we'll do is you do an add window, and now you get a chance to give it a name, and then you get to pick the window. You probably don't have access to all of those functions. I hope you don't, or Amy's going to kill me. So you can give this a name. You know, again, you can just say, you could call it anything you like. It's something that works for you. And then what you do is you use the section in here to find what you're looking for. Most of this stuff you're going to find is probably be under Microsoft Dynamics GP. Then underneath of GP are the various groups of functions, like in our case we'll look at financials. And then there's a very long list of screens. I recommend that you probably go through your normal way to find the screen, and then I'll show you how to find a shortcut. And then at the very top of every screen is typically a name. So let's suppose I was going to do, I think it's general journal entry. I don't even know what it is. Transaction entry. Okay, there's the transaction entry. Now, the other thing you can do is you can assign a shortcut key. So if you're a person who hates the left mouse and you like to use the keyboard, you can assign one of the function keys. And it'll be, once you assign a function key, it'll disappear from this list. So if you would like to have, if you're doing a lot of journals all the time and you don't want to have to click the mouse and you like function key 3, you would just assign that a function key. When you say done, and save, or you can say add and hit save, you notice it appears here. And now I can use F3, I can click here, and it brings up the transaction window. I'm in VCP, hopefully I don't screw up anything.
You
Sorry.
you can
I
add,
love VCP. I haven't done anything.
you
It's just,
can add the function number to it, to your title.
Yes,
too.
I mean, that, yeah, that,
So you can
another,
remember.
another idea is, and what I would recommend is,
To the
if
title.
you're not sure, what you could do in here is you could do like that. You could, and so you now know that when I click F3, it does the same thing.
Cool.
So that's kind of a nice feat. I like to hear that's cool. Okay, everybody hears that's cool. That's fine. All right. Yeah, so again, that is certainly, so, and you can add any window that you use, or you have a security access to, you can add to your shortcut bar.
That will speed up my call your insurance agency journal entries.
Yeah. So
One
it's,
after another.
And then if you don't, if you're not happy with what you like, you can come over here and you can delete it. Okay, not much, it's as simple as that for the window. Now, let's talk about another thing you can add. Okay, with this, something called a macro. Let me step back and tell you what is a macro. So in Great Plains, you can record your keystrokes, and it stores it in a text file, and then you can reference that text file. So for example, suppose you were creating, you know, some journal, and you're going to use the same description in 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 companies. You could simply record a journal, a macro that plays out the typing of that description, and you can then play that macro. You could do something like a macro that opens a window and starts typing, and you can record that and then play it back. So let's talk about how we do a macro. So let's look at, we'll do I'll open up, let's say, we'll open this window. Let's assume we were going to get down to the reference and put a reference in. So how do you start a macro? Tools, macro, and then record, or using your Alt F8. So now what it's going to want to know where you want to store the macro. The macro is in a file with a .mac extension. I recommend that you store it someplace, personally. There are places that we've set up where there are, I think, some system macros that people build. But you can, wherever you're comfortable with, remembering if you store it in your local drive and your machine goes away, it's not going to be there for you. So, maybe on your M drive, you give it a name, and the name is not significant. The name is just so that you know what it's for. It doesn't have any impact. Okay. Once you give it a name, at this point you are now recording. So the keystrokes that you now start to type are going to be recorded. So let's assume we're going to hit a tab, and you're going to be, or you're clicking, we're going to go to the batch ID. So normally you'd want to type a batch ID, and if it doesn't exist, you're going to have a question answered. But maybe I want to stop here before I get any further, and I want to use a different batch ID. Before I do anything else, I can also use the facility. I can say I'm going to insert a pause right here. So the macro will begin to play, and it'll pause. It'll give you a prompt. So let's say I might remind myself that I'm going to type in the journal. So if I can type batch, we'll just assume I'm loudly typing. Okay, so it's a pause. So I'm going to put in a batch, and I'm going to add it, and I'm going to have to delete this later, so that somebody doesn't get upset with me. If you sign a DBS batch in your company, you know I've been around. That's typically my batch ID.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point now, so you finish that, you can say tools, macro, resume recording. So now let's say I'm going to basically get into here, I'm going to type okay, and I'm going to stop. Let's say that's it, I'm done here, I want to stop. Macro, stop, or Alt F10. So now I've stopped it. I'm going to delete this. So here we are. Okay, now let's clear this batch. So now if I want to play a macro, tools, macro, play, find your macro, wherever it is located, and it begins to play. So the first thing mine did is it paused. You can do whatever you like, and I put a pause in them. So I'm gonna remind myself of putting a batch in, so I'll type that in. And then I would say tools, macro, continue. And it says I finished, and look, there is the text I typed. So, according to, if you're doing something repetitively, now obviously this is very simple, but you could be opening, you could be consistently, if you have the same, let's say, batch ID in multiple companies, and so maybe it's just a recurring batch and you wanna type in something every month, but you'd end up having to recreate it, you could build a macro, and it doesn't matter which company you're in, you can run it over and over again. So, in that sense, and let me show you, the actual, let me show you what the macro looks like. So this is what a macro file looks like, a bunch of gibberish that you may not understand. You can kind of get a sense that I'm in this window, and I'm moving over. It moved me to, I moved to the intercompany. I hit a tab, which would have gone to an intercompany field. Then I moved into the batch number, and then I paused. And then once I started again, it went into the reference field and it typed this text. So it's not like, and if you ever wanted to change the text, you just go in here and type different text and save that. I mean, there's nothing secret about it. It's just basically recording what you're doing, and then it plays this back. So, in that sense, if I wanted to now, I wouldn't necessarily, this is not necessarily the best macro to put on the left-hand side, but the idea is, again, you can add a macro, same thing, point your macro file, give it a keyboard, and you can then run a macro from the left-hand side. So, the company, if I'm correct, let me see if I'm. I'm not sure. The company login, I think, might even be. I'm not sure if these are. I'm trying to remember. I know these are yeah. There we go. This one is a macro. So in the X drive, which is that standard drive, we have a lot of stuff. There's a bunch of these macros that have been built way back when. Mary did a lot of macros. So that disconnect company, which I don't know if you anybody uses, it's out there as a macro.
I
So
used to use that, but it's just
yeah,
as easy to go down the bottom of your
it's easy to
screen.
go down the bottom. So so we go back to the X drive. So there are some macros. So we had built this macro area, and people wanted to use it on the X drive and do things with it. You can see some people used it. Haven't been used for quite some time, but it's out there. You can certainly store those macros anywhere you like. But that is a macro. So now, does anybody know what disconnect company is? So this is when users are logged in and you want to get them logged out. Yeah, this is called how we boot people. Great Plains, we have a limited, for those who don't know, we have a limited number of licenses. These are called concurrent licenses, which means we can have anybody can use it up to the number of licenses that we have purchased. And so if you leave it hanging out overnight and come in the next morning, you're fine. But what happens is if we have more than, I think it's 23 or 25, we've increased it recently by one. This will be where I might come in and find you. Like for example, this morning I came in and some people had left it hanging on since yesterday. And I decide I will go in and just sort of delete. I will remove their login. So if you're working and you forgot, and you came in yesterday and you thought when you started working this morning and all of a sudden it says, well, you're not connected, it's probably because I came in and did my thing.
That should be a good place, because I've had this happen to me, and actually Jennifer helped me, but
Right.
I was typing in, and all of a sudden it
just died.
wanted me to add a new account.
Ah, yes.
Don't know how I got there.
Yes.
You talk through before you finish it, and then
Yep.
it keeps you in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but so
It's
Jen-
new
I ran to
person, you're
Jennifer.
permitted to have that.
Jennifer's like, oh, you just gotta sign out completely. So I could have gone to.
Yeah, so then you can go to disconnect yourself, is one way to go, but you may have a problem there are permission issues around this, which obviously will let you do things on yourself but not on others.
Okay.
Whereas again, as a super user, I can do things for a lot of people.
So I don't think it lets you log in essentially twice because it keeps that
Exactly.
login open. So
Within the same company.
well,
Yeah.
so when I've done it, like even when I just log in and put my password in, it says such and such.
Okay.
It's already open and I'm able to delete it from there. That's
Okay,
what I
yes,
was-
that's another
Yeah.
deal. That
So
was
I was
added
never
in a
able to
recent
get
release.
to kind of the macro.
Yeah,
Way
that's
back
good.
when, this was the only way, I would say probably 3, 4, 5 years ago, they added it so that when you log in, it now says, hey,
Right,
and then it
right.
comes up, it brings you into the window and lets you delete yourself out. Yeah, so if you're, especially if you go into, if you come out, you go back into the same company, it says, oh, you're in there with a sign on, you can delete yourself and go back in. Okay, so macros can be added. Alright, so those are macros. What else? Okay, let's see, here's one. We can add a web page. So, let's go and if you'd like to add the hub onto your, okay, and since you work a lot in Great Plains, without having to get out and go somewhere else, although it's pretty easy to do this, again, if you do, this is an idea. You can then hit the test button to see if it's gonna actually work, which will bring you to a browser, and now I am logged in, and if I say add, here it is, and so I have an external. So if, for example, Florida Department of Revenue, you might wanna put on there, again, although go into your browser just as fast,
Right,
it's just another opportunity for you. Just, whatever's gonna work to make it easier for you, that works for us. Okay, so you can see again here, you can see what it is by the property. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Okay, another one that might be of interest to you. Again, so an external shortcut. So I'm going to say, probably didn't type it right, but I'm not watching what I'm doing. I didn't do it. Okay, so let's suppose you wanted to put, again, rather than just come down, this is, for lazy, you don't want to go all the way down to your toolbar. You just want to, maybe you, instead of that, you want to put a shortcut key. Maybe you'd like to make it a function key, so it's just a single hit. Instead of grabbing the mouse,
Right.
going down,
Right.
okay? So, all of our programs are under X and forms, is where I have all these goodies. Someday that may change, but payables inquiry. So here I'm pointing right at the payables inquiry. We'll make that function key F, I'll say, let me just make it F10. So now, by using F10, payables inquiry. Again,
Wait,
go ahead.
wait. I can put a function in Great Plains
So this is,
to pull up something from BCP front
I
end?
added
Yeah.
a shortcut to open the window. It doesn't pull anything,
Right.
it opens the
It
window.
opens the window.
It opens the
Yeah,
window,
sure.
but the idea is it's a function key. So instead of having to grab the mouse, go down, and if you're using the
Open
BCP
the
front
front
end,
end,
Well,
search
right
on
in
the report,
Right.
yeah.
right. I'll tell you the only downside that I'll
What is
just
that?
give you this caveat. If I move the location of that program,
Then ours.
you're messed up. Because, so if we decide that we needed to move things from X forms to somewhere else, using the front end, that'll be taken care of. But that being said, I'm probably not gonna do that without letting a lot of people know.
David, we won't be messed up. We're gonna be running down to your
That's
office.
true. That's true. Job security.
So what do you hit, add what?
Okay, so you can add an
Sorry.
external, that's no problem. So you would add an external shortcut, and then you browse your way to it. So if you look at this one here I just did, basically I went down to find it where it's located, and most of those shortcuts that we use along the bottom are, and if you're not sure, you can just take any one of your shortcuts and right click and do a properties on it,
Okay.
and that'll tell you where it is. And then you can, if you browse to that, then you can make it a function key. So the idea now is, when you have Great Plains open, you just hit the function key. Or you can just use the mouse to go here, but if you're gonna go here, you may as well go down there.
Right.
But again, it's just another one of those things to try to make you more productive.
So add external also works for the web page.
Web, so no, so that was an add, that was another option, let me cancel this. That was add web page.
Ah, okay.
So there's Windows, macros, web pages, and external. And then, you know, if you wanna get, and then if you wanna get into,
And folder as well.
yeah, so you can create folders where you can build one folder where you can put multiple things inside of it. I'm only having a little issue when I add a folder, I can't rename it. So the name is new folder, I should be able to. But I have, so I didn't show you that because I'm like, it says new folder and I couldn't get it to rename. If you can do this, I've not been able to do that. But that would be nice. Okay. The other thing is, there, in the shortcut area, there's a section called startup, which is a folder. You should know that whatever you put into the starter folder, when you open up Great Plains, will open automatically. So if most of the stuff you do is journal entries, why not put journal entry, transaction entry in here? And then every time you go into Great Plains, that opens. That could be annoying if that's not all you do. But, you know, I mean, if you're doing one thing a lot, the window will open. So, and all you do is you just basically add a shortcut into here.
But that's for every company.
That's for every, it's for every time you, when you log in, each time you log in.
But you can't say, well, I want it to do it for this company,
No,
but not this
no,
company.
it's not conditional, it's kinda like an all or nothing, so whatever you put into startup, that will start up automatically for you. Again, you know, a lot of this is built over time, we've gotten a lot more desktop windows, we used to have just one screen, and, you know, trying to do everything on one screen was tough, now you've got
Yeah.
multiple windows,
Right.
bigger screens, so again, this is just some of the capabilities that exist. Okay, that is pretty much the shortcut area. Now we're gonna get into a thing called lists. So lists, if you go to, on the left, on this bottom section, this navigation pane, these are navigation panes for sections of functions. So if you click on, I click on the purchasing, you'll notice when I do that, there are things here listed. These are lists. So these are ways of looking up information. So if we click on one of these lists, it shows you the middle section and starts to produce a list of information based on what that list is defined to do. So vendors by default shows you this list of vendor name, ID, phone number, and contact. Now what can we do with this? This is one of those that we get real, when I show you something in a few moments, that you're gonna go, okay. Let's actually, instead of doing vendor, let's go down into sales, because sales is more interesting. So we look at sales and we'll look at customers. Okay, so here's customers. So you can select the customers you're interested in doing something with by selecting an individual customer. Let's look at, anybody good who has balances or any information that might be in that BCP?
Leo Sock.
Oh, down on the L's, of course.
It's S.
S,
S dash
yeah.
Leo.
S dash Leo, of course.
No, it's
this
the
is-
name.
That's
Oh,
customer
the
name.
customer ID.
The name is.
Customer ID, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry, okay.
It
Oh,
would
by the
be
way,
L,
by the way,
yeah.
just guess what, guess how you
You
sort?
can list.
You can, okay.
Just click.
Wonderful.
Yep, so you just, literally, as you would expect, you would just click on the row. Okay, so if we look at Leo's, there we go down to Leo, there he is, okay. So you can click here, and when you select, all of a sudden, more things start to happen. Based on the selection you have, you can start doing some things on that individual customer or vendor. So you could you can go to the customer maintenance screen right from here. You know, not a big deal. Not a big deal.
You're not impressed?
Okay, well wait. But let's say, I don't know, who anybody else near Leo who has balances or any information on sure?
Go to the AR.
Yeah.
Little screen.
Juan said.
Okay. Alright, so we've got two customers selected. Notice when you have more than one, certain things disappear. Like when you only had one, it's gonna allow me to apply sales documents. Now that I have more than one,
Oh, wait. Apply sales
Well, we're
tax?
not, no, we're not applying. I'm showing you that when, I'm not going to,
Question
I
about
promise
that.
you, I'm not going to. I pretty much know what I'm doing. The idea is, if you'll notice, when you select more than one, different things start to change. And things that you can't do to multiple start to gray out.
Oh, I
Okay, so they begin to gray out, like you can't edit multiple. If you only have one selected, you can go from this screen right to an edit. Not, and again, not that this is where you would go, but this is an example. But what you might be interested in is, you might be interested, under reports, suppose you wanted to do an age trial balance for more than one customer. Not possible through those darn reports. Through here, it is. Select the customers you're interested in, come over to reports, and let's just do a historical age trial balance. And I can decide if I want to include details, I'll do that for now. And I'll print aged as of today. And you can decide which, there are transactions using GL post date, or let's say by default. And I'm gonna go to the screen so we can see it. So what you're gonna be basically running now is historical age trial balance for Juan Montez and Leo Saad, at one shot. So if for some reason whereas before you would have to go in one for Leo, and run another one for, so here you can see. Of course, we pick big customers that have lots of stuff,
Yeah.
but that's okay, you can still see
You don't
that.
have to work with it.
See, what you'll see is, at the top, this is Leo, and then there's Juan. So by using this lists and some of the features that exist up here, you can do things you can't do in other parts of Great Plains. So hopefully that's an aha.
That is,
Again, I don't, I certainly don't do your job, so I don't know how this might help, but it seems to me like this is one of those things where, man, it'd be really nice if I could do this quickly, if I needed to do a couple of these. So anything, you can print the list, you can use an age trial balance, historical trial balance. The other thing you can do with these lists is, you can take them off to Excel. So you could, if you wanted to, if I wanted to produce a list of all my customers, God help me, I should do this right in BCP.
Trick, right?
Lots of heck. We're going for it, we're going for it. Send to Excel, let it do its thing, and what you'll see is, ta-da!
wow.
So whatever, so that was all customers, right?
Yeah.
So, if you needed some of this, so let's assume I'm gonna uncheck all. Let's just do a couple. We'll just do a couple. A little faster, because it should just be those. So whatever you selected. So then, well, that could be useful. Okay, you say, well, what if the idea is, what if I said, I'd like to filter this a little bit. Now you notice this says customers read only. What that means is certain lists are defined already by Great Plains, and you can't change them. But you're going to be able to make manipulations to the list, change them, add some filters, and give them a name, and they'll be yours only. So you could run a unique version of this. So we could add a filter. I could say and, now, I only get a few choices. I don't have control, but let's say, the current balance is greater than and includes, that's between, let's say it's greater than and includes, I don't know, a penny.
0.01.
Yeah, how about a penny? Okay, so this is basically, if I do that and I apply that button right here, I now have a list of customers whose current balance is greater than a penny. But geez, that's not, but the thing is, now I can't see the balance here.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what the heck, that's not helpful.
And a column.
So you can go to columns, okay, but wait, I can't control that.
Right.
Well, here's what we need to do. We want to save this with a different name. Once you get it, I'll give it a different name. Okay, when I do that, it's thinking. Now, I believe I have to remember where to do this now. I have to remember where I do this, where do I do this? Customize. Columns, and look,
Oh,
current balance,
wow.
save. So now, I have a list of all the customers with current balance, and if I select them all, I can say go to Excel and send in Excel.
And
Cool.
then,
Pretty cool. Okay, I'm done now. Go ahead, Pauline.
so I have instances where sometimes I have a lot of unapplied payments. I could go from select one, an individual
Yes.
customer and apply sales
So
dollars.
let's say it's Arthrex. And I'm not going to apply any, but there's apply sales on, yes. So the idea is you can go from here and move right to these other screens.
But my question about that is, when you just go to apply sales documents and select the customer, and you pick a payment, apply it, you have to go back out.
Yeah,
You
so
come back
I,
in.
so I need to get,
to
so
pick
hold
another
on
payment.
that, I'll go to the test company, see if there's anything out there we can do to try to test your issue. Because your concern is like, and that may be that, it could be a couple things. One, it's either the screen works that way, or two, customization was done, I hate to blame Mary. Customization was done married to the,
10 years now.
I know she's been fun, but it's her code that's still running there. So I can blame somebody, so it's like, that's if you ever leave and we're still yelling your name.
You did a good job.
Yeah, she did. I mean, you have no idea the amount, you really do not realize when the screens, what you do on the screens and how much she's really put code behind to make it easy. And when I go in as myself and don't have those customizations, first of all, my screens look different in the sense of a lot of extras, and they just don't work as easily. So, let's hold on a minute and let's make sure we get back to it. I want to see if we can play with something. I don't want to do it, I can see
I
here.
might have, in Ave Maria, you probably have a lot of.
Okay, so before we do it, let's hold it, remind me to come back and let's look at that issue. So yes, you can do various things from here, and you can also run reports for that one. By the way, there's another up here under restrictions, there's a basic screen, like I can automatically exclude inactive customers by this criteria here. Another kind of cool thing that you probably didn't know about is there's this other thing called an all-in-one view. This all-in-one view, now some of this isn't really simple, this all-in-one view allows you to look at things on a column basis. So you can see all of the cash receipts, you can see all the returns here, right in like one column for the one particular customer I selected. So it's kind of, and then you can see but this is only showing you a certain number at a time. Not that, I'm not sure how useful this is, it's just one of those.
On the blue, the payments or the returns,
Yeah, you
Can
can,
you
oh,
look at
of course you
that?
can.
Okay.
Of course you can. So again, it's an interesting way if you're looking at, but again, it only shows you so many at a time. There are some options on this screen where you can decide what things you want on the left, on the top. A lot of this is pretty much, I mean, we don't use some of these functions, this is a generic, it's built from whatever they gave me. We really haven't spent a lot of time even customizing this. So that's an all-in-one view that's available to you, and even if we go over to purchasing, and we go to vendors, you'll see the vendors, so I'll just pick any vendor now. There are still the H-Tribe balance, you have transactions, so there's a lot, but you don't notice they don't have the all-in-one view sitting in here. So you can do a lot with these lists. So for example, customer labels, so I've been asked many times by individuals, you know, can I get a list of people because I want to send labels out? Like GeoCSI used to do that often. I go in here, this is read-only, but it already has a built-in inactive is, you can say inactive is yes. Is no, I'm sorry, inactive is no, I'm sorry. And here you have a list, you can take this, list of customers, and it has the basic contact information, send it off to Excel and use Excel as a way to do a word merge. So there's a lot of features, and you can add several lines of filters. It doesn't have to be just one, you can put many. And you can decide when you're doing this, is it an anding or is it and not? So you have some flexibility. again, it's a question of, you know, what you do. If you do something often, you can do that. And if you, by the way, you can also hide this little filter box right here. So if you wanna see more, instead of having that big white space, you can close this down, you get a few more customers on there. And also, by the way, when you're selected a particular customer, you have some basic information down here. Here's your balance information. It's not showing here, but they show you some basic information. So, kind of, again, a nice way to show at it. Let's go click here. And up in the right-hand corner, there's a quick filter, okay? So, that's the beginning of lists. So let's see how we do a little more. So now, we do a save as, and it will create an entry in here. The other thing you can do is, I can take this, and I can add this to the navigation pane as a shortcut. Sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. I don't remember the answer shortcut. Oh yeah. So another item I can do is now I can start talking about your homepage. You can add this. So let's take my special customers one that I did. Because I want to add this to my homepage. What will happen is, when on the home page, I have a section I can turn on called Quick Links. So to customize this home page, come up on the top right, click on Customize this page, and you can turn certain basic things on. You don't have a lot of controls, but basic stuff. And there, it added that list onto my home page in the Quick Links area. So now, I don't have to go to the sales and customers, I can go right from my home page and bring that list up.
What else can you do?
Are we having fun yet? See, and you thought you only come out with one. I don't have many nuggets. There's more.
Well, we can go on the homepage.
Okay, so let's talk about the home page. That's great. So let's talk about that. So when we go back to the home page, there are some basic things you can do, like my reports might be very useful to you. A lot of these others I would say are pretty much completely useless in my opinion. There's just a lot of stuff we don't use. You could add more columns if you like, but given that the two things that I think are useful would be the quick links and the My Reports. So I'll turn that on and I'll show you what you can do with My Reports. Okay, so let's suppose we go into, let's go to sales, and we'll go down to reports, and we'll go to trial balance. We'll do a trial balance. Oh, I'm not aging it for you. Modify. Right there, that My Reports button will take, and it will give it whatever name you'd like. You can certainly use the default name. We now go to the home screen. Guess what? My Reports now has My Reports.
You're
So-
making my life so much easier.
But wait, there's more for $9.99. No. So if you don't like the order of these things, you'd like to move these around a little bit. I have to remember now. I think it's right here.
Yeah.
You can grab that and make it up there so it's pretty. Again, I would say these are the only two that I think are really significant, and even then, the quick links certainly the My Reports is a biggie. You know, instead of going on, if you go to certain reports you're running all the time, it'll be there on your homepage.
How many can you put on there?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Test it.
I honestly, test it. I honestly don't know.
You've done quite a few.
Okay, have you used it?
Oh,
Okay, yeah, I
you
mean,
think so?
you can see how small it is. I don't know.
She's seen my screen.
It's on YouTube.
You have stuff like that? You have those other boxes on your screen?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, so it's customized, so here I am, for example, in the sales area. These are the standard sales boxes. You could turn some of these off, you could move these around. So, I mean, these are all things that are possible. Again, I don't know how many people use this area down in here. Okay, so here we are again, so we have this list. Okay, add to, customize, filters, okay. So that's a lot to do with lists. Again, you have to determine what might work for you, where it's useful. It's just another set of nice features, one place to go for some things rather than all this. I think the biggie to me is if you're doing trail balances for multiple customers. There's no way else to do it except from here. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about these toolbars. So over here, there's an opportunity for you to turn on toolbars. If you'll right click up in here, you'll see there are various toolbars you can turn on. If you click on, let's say, financial, now, you'll see that it has some already built items that come with it. Like here is general ledger, here's quick journal, there's detail inquiry. Now you notice how it dropped it down to another line. If you would like that to tighten up, if you will right click and unlock the toolbars, you can grab that toolbar, and if your dexterity works, you're up here, make it a little tighter so you have screen, you don't lose that screen space, and then you can lock them again.
That's cool.
So that's kind of nice, quick way to do that. But, so there's a bunch of them, there's financials, there's sales, now, what if I would like to customize? So here we have the financial toolbar, and here are the items that are on it by default. If you would like to add something else, you can. You can also insert spacers in there. So if you're a button person and loves to go for buttons on the toolbar, you can do that. Shortcuts, function keys, clicking on shortcuts. So we've now got about 3 different ways, besides using the ridiculous menus where you go down 20 different ways, or you can use the home page if you want to. So there's about now 4 ways that you can get to something. So now you should be able to work faster and get it all done quicker, right, Amy? Right, more companies. So this is another feature. Now the reason why I talk about toolbar, there's one that you may not have turned on, and this is let me turn off my financial one. This right there is a thing called Smart List. And if you don't have it, and if you want it, and after you see what today is, you go here, you'll see it's in the standard toolbar. So now we're going to talk about this thing called Smart Lists. So this is another way to see a bunch of things at one shot, with the ability for you to build filters. It's not unlike, it's very similar to lists that you see, but it doesn't have much of the action panes. So it's just a different way of looking at it. So let's go under purchasing, and I'll go to vendors, and this is very similar to what you see over there. So this is a different way of doing this. It's another way, and again, it lets you go to Excel, lets you go to Word. You can do some basic things. You don't have the same level of filtering. You have some columns that you can add. There are more columns here than there are in those lists. So based on which thing you're in, if you're in vendors, there's a lot more things you can add. So for example, suppose we wanted to add to the vendors 1099 type, and we wanted to add comment 2. Cindy knows that well. And now we have a quick way to get the 1099 type of report where you can see the information about the 1099 customers. Okay, and you can then add this over here to your smart list. Now, then when you create one of these, you can add that to the favorites. Now, I think you have the facilities, and based on who you want to give access to, system says everybody's going to get access to it. All companies, everybody. So if you're building one, a lot of people might use, you could give access to system. or you could set something that's only available in the company, again, only in the smart list. Or you could just make it, we don't really use user classes too much, and I'll skip that, but user ID, just for you. Again, it's a question of, now you see that there's lists on the main screen, this is probably, it has more columns, but it's less capable with the filters. So, something to think about. But another cool thing that you can do from here, so I'm gonna pick a vendor. I can actually now go into I can go from here using Word, there's a Word letter writing capability within Great Plains. So I picked a vendor, I'm gonna prepare a vendor letter. This brings up the letter writing assistant. And there are a series of standard letters that are available. Some of these are all built from within Great Plains. There's other places in the system where you can actually go in and create some of these. I'll say, let's create I don't know, I'll just pick one of these. Request for W-9, let's see what it looks like. Okay, I don't, no, that would be bad. Unmark all, let's just pick one or two. Okay, next. And you can decide the titling you'd like to put on there in terms of who's going to say this. It's preparing the letters, and if we go well, we'll see in a moment, it actually will be in Word. If I can wait, it should come up. There's Word, there it is.
Oh,
Another one.
Well, we just did this for Kelly too, with her customers.
We're doing for Kelly, we're doing something a little different. And Kelly, we're using a feature inside of Great Plains. There's a feature called Extender, which lets me build some custom screens that get attached. And we're gonna be, to customers, she's gonna be adding in property management information that relates to square foot and other things of that nature. And then she's gonna be taking information out of Great Plains, plus this additional information, and driving it over into letters in Word and trying to do some of her, I guess it's the annual CAM letter. There's some letters we're gonna try to produce. So that is built in the Great Plains. I'm not gonna save that. So there's another thing you can do. Again, just as like here, you can take this out to Excel, you can print the list. The search here is a little less, it's a little less easy to use, but you can use, this search will let you pick a column and then all of those features. And ultimately, you can produce one of these, and when you're ready, you can save it.
Can you do the letter, can you select customers
Yeah,
to
so
do the
when-
letter?
Yeah, so when,
So
so
you
the
don't
ones you
have to do
understand,
them all.
so when you
Yeah,
say
that's what you did.
Word, prepare a vendor letter,
Mhm.
up comes in this box here, let's say I'll pick the request for Diane. Here's your list,
Oh, gotcha.
and you can unmark all, mark all, so it comes up and then you can pick which one.
So you can do like past due letters?
That's what I was
Right,
Yeah.
so there's some things we can do, and we can look at, inside of Great Plains, there are ways you can build some letters. So we'll definitely wanna spend time on that at some point.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna do that today, so, once you save a favorite, I'll just put this, I'll make it for me only right now, so you all don't get to see that. I'm gonna add it to favorite, and you'll see now, over here, there it is. So when I went into Smart List, I could pull that Smart List here. I could build the same thing over under lists just as well. So the Smart Lists were created first, and then they built some of those lists concepts into Great Plains afterwards. So this is just something else, just another way that you can do things.
David, I noticed when you were going to save that, one of it said like save and reminder.
Yeah, there are reminder capabilities, and I have not used them. Cancel. Let's go here. I have no idea what a reminder does. I have not played with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know there is a capability inside of Great Plains for reminders and notifications, but they don't go to your email, they just are inside of Great Plains.
Would it show up in your task or something? Cause I've seen task, I've never
Tasks
used it.
in Great Plains?
Mhm.
Yes, there is a.
And on your home screen, you
On
can
home
have
screen,
tasks.
there is on your home screen,
Mhm.
there is a there is a to-dos,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do that. I do not know how you set one up, but you can, are some
Maybe
here.
that's
Oh,
right.
yeah, mine,
But-
mine is right there.
Right, but my gut feeling is that Outlook is probably the better place for that,
Yeah,
and you know,
yeah.
so this is inside, again, this is probably for someone who was only focusing inside of Great Plains, doing only Great Plains, didn't have all these other features.
Yeah.
We have just so many other places, but, yeah, so it probably appears here, so,
Cause it says reminders. there.
yeah, you're right. Okay, so, what's that mean? Okay, back here, smart list. So those are, that's just, smart list is, there's a lot you can do with it, you've seen that. Yep. So, kinda cool, another thing to do inside of Great Plains. Okay, anything else?
Is there a way that you can print the GL to Excel and have the description on the right column?
Description on the right.
On the
Yeah,
right.
cause when you print the GL to Excel, like the amount,
It goes
it's
in their
like-
column, so you're printing the
yeah.
GL.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's like-
Let's see, let's
Yeah,
take a
that's-
look at what kind of lists are available.
Hold on, Jane. Can we just one step back?
Sure.
Printing the GL to Excel, how do you do that?
You're talking about the report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you wanna go ahead and walk her through, she's looking for something here.
Cause I just get a standard PDF, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, you have to.
You
put
transfer it
down.
to a comment unlimited.
Yeah, I gotta
You
change
print it to a
to-
CF, okay, so
Print
is
to
it a trial balance or just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone, any particular?
Just do it,
Anyone.
any, just so I can, let's see.
Okay, is that good enough?
Your destination.
Destination.
Right, I'm just making sure you're okay. And you go to a file,
Yep.
Yeah.
and you use a comment
Comma
limited,
limited.
and where does it end up dropping it?
You have to.
You have to-
tell it where to
Tell it
go.
where to go.
Yeah,
So
pick the
browse.
folder, and then you browse where you want to go,
Just put it on your desktop.
and you have to change the type there as well
You
to
can-
comment.
Yes, you have to keep,
Nice.
cause it keeps trying to.
It keeps trying to change it back. You
Yeah.
have to be mindful that.
All right, here we go. Okay,
And then you have to print.
yep,
Yeah.
need to do its thing. By the way, okay, also, in case you didn't know, under here, under process monitor, if you have something running, it will appear, that was dynamic process monitor, like if you have something running in the background,
Oh.
that you can see those things running there. So now, what you're saying is we go to the desktop, and I look for, I call it export CSV.
And there it is.
You wanna save it as a
It's
regular
ugly.
worksheet.
Yeah.
Don't mess with it like that, don't save it like that, anytime you open it up, it'll just be a bunch of gibberish.
So is there a particular report that you're running that, is trial, is it the trial balance?
Just the GL balance says.
So what do you want it to do?
So what I would
What do you
recommend
want
you
us
do,
to-
here's what I recommend. Get with me, show me that thing, and let's see if I can't come up with a better way to do it or to help you in some way. I
Do
get
a
there-
smart list.
Maybe able to, I was
Yeah,
just gonna say, I'm gonna
smart
run over
list.
to, I'm gonna go over to see what kind, I was just ready to look in the transaction area.
With the
Yeah.
smart list, can you give it date ranges? I thought
Well,
it had
let's
to
take a
be
look, you can
date.
filter, there are some filters you can do, so
I'm
let's,
not sure
here's
what you're asking
financials,
me to do.
count transactions, so now, again, this is what they have built into it, and maybe a smart list might work for you.
Yeah.
So you'll have to play with this a little bit.
Thinking these.
I mean, this looks like it's, I don't know, what again, you know, I haven't gone in and run here, but you can see, by the way, different restrictions, different reports, because it's, you know, it's more specific to, and different new things you can do right from here. Here's the, going to account, that takes you right to the account maintenance, so you can do different things from here, and again, what I would recommend you do is go play. And if you can't be satisfied, please see me. You know, one of the, and I've told Amy and everybody this, we exist to make sure that you're as productive as you can be. So if I can do, or my staff can do something to help you out, please let us know. Doesn't mean we can do it immediately, sometimes it may take me 5 minutes, but but, you know.
Then we feel stupid.
No, I'm talking about a report or a query. I can access the back end, I can access that, things like that. Also, some other things we've done, just to talk about a little bit of things we can do, like in Pig's area, they're doing things now, we've given them a spreadsheet, because she does monthly allocations and where she's accessing to the spreadsheet, payroll data and GL data, putting it on the spreadsheet and doing what she has to do instead of having to go somewhere and type all of this.
Huge.
Now, it requires permissions, I can't let you, you have to have permissions to get into the payroll system with read-only, et cetera. But the more of that we can do, because we can spreadsheets are capable of reading our database, because it exists in-house, because we're not in the cloud, because we're here, there's things I can do for you. If there's repeating, if things happen to you all the time, for Monty, I had an intern here last year, was it? I think it was last year. Yeah, when we Newgate, we're doing Newgate, we're doing monthly allocations for Newgate. And it's just a real repetitive task of grabbing data and massaging it in a certain way. We sent our intern off on doing that, and we have a way of accomplishing that. Now, Newgate's on its way out, as it were, with us, but if you have things you're doing, think about, what I can do to help you, because I mean, that's really what we're about. The more I can make you productive, the better it is for the company and longer, and the more stuff you have to do somewhere else, and focus on something more. Okay. All right, so that's Smart List. So we talked about customization, moving the block around. Okay. So let's look at, does anybody want a short break, or keep going? Keep going?
No, this is,
Because I can talk for a long time.
keep going, keep going.
All right, so I'm going to delete that journal. Okay, so in the payables area, I think it's where I'm going to go to payables, yeah. So there's a couple of inquiries I'd like to point out that I know we're so comfortable with Image Now and what it does, but Image Now has limitations to it in terms of how it connects. The connection of information like checks and credit memos and invoices to Image Now is done through a lot of magic. Sometimes the magic breaks, but ultimately Great Plains is the answer where everything exists. And sometimes when you go into Great Plains, you can get more information than you can in looking at Image Now. So just a couple of important inquiries that I want to talk about, and then I'll head over to Image Now and show you how some of this can be helpful. So transactions by document, or transactions, especially in the payables area, transactions by vendor, transactions by documents are probably biggies, if you're interested. So let's just do I have a note here? Yeah. I think this is what I want to do. So transactions by document, putting in the vendor ID, you then get, without doing anything else, you get all of the items from the beginning of time, payables, and sorted, I believe, by time.
Well, those are payments.
And the payments are in here. Yeah. Now, most of us have been around, but those who have been around Great Plains, is everybody familiar with work, open, and history in those three pieces? Anybody want me to take a moment to go over that? Sure. Okay. So Great Plains, typically in the payables area, it has three places that things operate in. When we're first entering in a payable, or when it first moves from Image Now and into Great Plains, it goes into the work area. So that means basically you're typing it in, or it's getting ready to go. It has not posted to it's not posted to AP. It is not posted to GL, and it is sitting there waiting to be moved to that next step. So when we come from Image Now, we put all of the payables into work. Okay. So you could, if you wanted to, query only work. Unusual, because that's probably not what you want to do. A lot of that stuff is typically going to come from Image Now anyway. Once the payable is posted, the payable goes to an open section. It's an open payable, and it's not fully applied. And then, once a payment is done, and hopefully that usually occurs very quickly, because Tuesdays and Thursdays, Trish goes through and posts any open payables that are to be processed, and makes them open, and then typically right after that, there's a check run, and it will then create a payment and apply those. Once an invoice is fully applied, it goes to history. So an invoice moves from work to open to history. So by default, you're looking at all three. I mean, if you really, again, you want to look at less, you can manipulate some of this. But the idea behind any of this is, I'm going to go down painfully. This is not my favorite inquiry in the world, that's why I like the one we wrote better.